Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Without further delay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01. Please join me and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. We have one student representative who will be out. They are at that's Joseph. He's at a ski meet. Everyone else seems to be here. Any corrections to the minutes?
No adjustments.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of December 29th, 2023 and January 3rd, 2024 as written without corrections.
So moved.
Seconded. Thank you. Without objection, I can declare the minutes approved. Are there any public comments? Oh.
I mean, that's true.
Oh, they have a vote, please.
On the minutes.
Approval of the minutes, yes, thank you for the vote.
Five.
Yes, 5-0. Thank you. Are there any public comments in the room? Any on Zoom?
There are only administrators on this meeting, so.
Okay. All right, moving along, we will hear from Superintendent Hodgson with his report.
Okay, I turn my mic on. I had sent my report out with a couple other things I want to add to that. First of all, I attended the winter convocation for superintendents last week, and there was a last-second change in our keynote speaker on Thursday because she has COVID, so wasn't there. Commissioner Macon and Deputy Commissioner Welter was there in her place. They were fine. They just talked about current issues that the department's dealing with. And Megan attended as well, which was great to have her there. It was a good experience to sort of be around the conversation. The meetings, the sessions are important, and the not sessions are equally as important in those conversations. So it was great to have Megan there. Friday we had a keynote speaker in the morning who was outstanding. He wrote a book called Old School, and I got to hear him when I was up in Hope. So I was looking forward to hearing him again. And he really talked a lot about, I think, Alicia, you were the only one that went to the fall conference, but it was sort of a nice follow-up to the fall conference because he spoke about AI and what schools need to do to embrace AI and do it responsibly. And what I loved most about his message was it was about things that need to happen should be very purposeful. I think sometimes we get new devices, new things, shiny new toys, and everybody wants to embrace doing that and put it in place without really thinking about what four areas that his thing he had us do. He had us very interactive about really focusing on the outcomes first. I'm not going to do it. I decided to do that. Instead of do the hand motions, outcomes, and then the strategies, and strategies, and then the tools to make it happen, and then sort of lastly looking at the rigor and relevance of that. So it was really, really good. I was happy to hear him. I didn't get to stay for the afternoon piece of it. Megan stayed. It was a panel discussion with superintendents led by Dan Rose from Drummond Woodson. So it's the first time, I don't know how many years we've had a conference, but it's the first time ever that I'm aware of that we actually had an afternoon session. So I had scheduled something, so I wasn't there for the afternoon, but that was great. It was great to have Megan there. So it's nice when she's there. So I can can go into more details. You can ask Megan some details if you want. We can get to that. The other thing I want to make sure I finally got a note while I was over the weekend that our very own David Guston set a personal record for the track meet last Saturday, right? Yeah. He just his personal record by 10 seconds. And he's already told me that's not good enough. And I was like, all right, but I think if you could take 10 seconds off your PR every time you ran, you'd be happy with that. Yeah. He agreed with that. So that's awesome. And they are, I did ask David, they do have a meet this Friday at 3:30 at USM. And I'm planning to attend that, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And the last thing, you can spend as much time with this as you want. So follow-up is the buses, the electric buses we've shelved them. We're not using them, at least for now, because one of them has been sent back to the factory. I wrote to you guys, they had a critical failure, which could have been a huge issue for us because, if you're out on the highway, thank God the driver was one of the back roads, was not going probably not even 10 miles an hour. It had a critical failure, which meant the power, there was no power, the bus stopped running, and the brakes and steering obviously didn't work as well. So I was able to lift it over to the side. But that's just sort of the latest of a series of issues with the electric buses. And this is one of the two that we've had pretty much in service for the entire year. So that bus has been taken back to the factory. One of the great things about having Commissioner Lincoln and Deputy Commissioner Shooter, who I didn't mention, he was also there too, was they had just the day before been involved, and actually earlier that morning, coming to the convocation, had been involved in a conversation with the governor's office about the whole, not just here in Winthrop, but around the state. And it really does appear that the issue is with the vendor who was putting these buses out. And the commissioner asked me as she was leaving what I'd like to see happen, and I told her what I'd like to see. And she's going to work on it. I think Lion is committed. Lion is the company. Is committed to diagnosing and making this better because they're in year 2 of a 5-year grant, which they were the only vendor. Now they've opened up the vendor field because that's why we had to go with them when we initially got out 4 buses. But one of the things that I said was, if at all possible, I would like to see Lion repay the grant, the money that they gave, that we were awarded, so that we could then go out to one of the other vendors. Because the other vendors are not having these issues. This is clearly vendor specific. So that would be my ideal. Whether or not it happens, we shall see. But it was one of the side conversations I got to have. A really, really good friend of mine is the superintendent in a neighboring district, a little further than neighbors away from us, who also have been having issues with their electric bus and bus, they only have one, but serious enough that they are no longer using it. So it's an ongoing issue. Very pleased that the governor's office is involved, and that we have people pulling for us for this to be great. Before we do questions, we'll keep right to them, because if there are no appointments, resignations, retirements, or transfers.
Does the board have any questions?
Yes. One question and some information. Looking at the budget down the road, the Rambler Road. Who owns that land right now, from the Western Ave all the way up?
Technically, right now we do. The school department owns it.
So if the town takes over it, do they own it or do we own it?
If the town takes it over as a town road, they will own it.
So they would have to be maintenance.
Correct.
Okay.
Great, if you don't mind, but that was a big part of the conversation at the town council meeting a week ago, and I told Anthony that I was very pleased with the tenor of the conversation, where there was sort of this sense, and I think in the past there would have been this sense of, oh my God, if we take that over, we're going to have to take on all the costs associated with it, without any realization that, and I've always said, Anthony agrees with this, Jeff Cowork before him also agreed, that it's taxpayer money. Whether it's school side, town side, it's taxpayer money. And that was really the message that I was hearing from, and Matt Byrne was here, the Public Works Director, and the town council members were here basically echoing that same thing. It makes sense for the town to take it over, and Anthony spoke to me just today that we've been in touch with our attorney and they're beginning the process of making that happen officially.
And second on that, Charles Street. Where does Charles Street start on school property?
Right now, Charles Street starts school property at the gate. And if anybody's ever interested, I can do it now, or you can talk to me individually. There's some history to that I think is very interesting. Well, I guess I got to say it now. Before the high school was built, the access to the middle school was only through Charles Street. So Charles Street was a two-way street all the way to the middle school. When the high school was built, the decision was made then by the board at that time and the superintendent at that time that Charles Street would not be for school personnel at all. It would only be for walkers. So technically what the board had decided back then was that Charles Street would be for walkers, and walkers were not permitted on Rambler Road. We had that conversation here at the board level last year and reiterated our support for that. So yeah, that would, as it stands right now, the discussion is not to do anything different with Charles Street.
Monica?
So, okay, just for clarity, so Charles Street would not be opened as a way down. If the town took it over, that gate would stay in place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the gate would stay in place, and the town would also, in addition to the commitment of maintaining the road, right now they plow through the gate. And they've already told us, and Matt has already told us, they will plow through the gate. So the plan always was for Charles to remain an egress for emergency situations, and that would remain in place.
Heidi?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So the electric vehicle bus, so basically whenever there's a critical failure, they lose complete access of brakes, electricity, or everything. So if this is the case with anything, then why would we look to replace these with more electric vehicles that may have the same issue?
Well, I think you just said the key word, may have. The line has had some history of this, the other vendors have not. I think there's still a fairly strong commitment to electric vehicles in general, but we are, well, we first looked at invoking Maine's limit law for our buses, but they exceed 8,500 pounds, which is the limit for that, so they don't fall out of that. But I think there is a strong sense of that we've not, I think the buses are good, I think the production is not. So that's why we're possibly looking at another vendor is what we're doing and why we park the buses for right now. And just for another, so we have another one of our buses, as you're probably aware, they had, two of the buses have not been used much at all, if at all, because they have windshield issues. And some of you may recall seeing the buses parked before the glass for like the first 2 months of the school year. Well, the glass couldn't fix it. So one of the other ones is presently at O'Connor's. And O'Connor's says they fixed the windshield. And this is all at no cost to Winthrop. Line is paying for all of these repairs. However, it failed. It's a brand new bus. It failed inspection because of other faulty things that are. I don't think we can blame on electric buses. We definitely can blame on the vendor, and they are on hook for repairing them to make sure they are fixed.
I just think that before we consider if we are able to go with a different vendor and still stay with the EVs, that we find out if there is a critical error, if the brakes and everything are going to do the same as this vendor did.
Yeah, obviously that's an excellent point. It's a huge safety issue, and we've already, there's really only two other vendors, and they have not, neither one of them have ever had this problem.
Okay, and I have another question regarding the district physician. Is this a,
Yeah, just 1 second.
right?
If we can wait that section.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's coming up on you.
Yeah, it's Any further board questions? Monica?
Yes. Yes. Okay, I had a question about, I agree with you, Ivy, and very concerned. I mean, out of the number of the buses that we bought, there are none of them that are functioning right now. That's right.
Well, there is one that has not had any issues, but we're not going to take that chance. We've lost confidence with Lion.
So, yeah, so I hear you saying that your objective is to get Lion to take back their buses, get reimbursed for the funding that we got, and see about using that funding for another type of electric bus. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You need to be really clear that the $5 million grant from the federal government is for electric buses only. That's not true. You can look at other, no, actually that is true. The state is offering other alternatives. You can get propane, you can get another type of bus, but not through this grant. The grant is for electric buses only.
And I shook my head because I just wanted to make sure you understood that we don't get the money back.
Oh, sure, right.
So this isn't, as Jim was just saying, that something that we don't get it back, so it's not coming back to Winthrop.
Any other questions?
I did. I had a follow-up. I was concerned. So when this incident happened, were there school children on the bus at that time?
There were 6 middle school, high school kids on the bus at that time.
Okay, so parents were alerted. I'm assuming the heat went out as well, but we got somebody over there to take care of that.
Yes. I mean, as you all know, Winthrop is a fairly small geographic area, so we were able to get a bus there and get them on their way.
Thank you.
Well, I also, thinking about that, Josh went up and got the bus, restarted it, reset it, I don't know if the right term is here, but got it going, and then it happened again at the bottom of the hill, going down 133, and at that point he called me, and I said, don't try to reset it, call the record. We're not paying for any of this, Lion's paying for all of this, and so don't try to reset it and get it back to, I mean, it was a mile and a half away, and that's what he said. I said, well, I don't care, we're not going to be responsible for a brake failure, critical failure, and that being an accident because of their failure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the chair report.
There are a couple of parents on now, so you can check that.
The chair report, we had our first pre-board meeting. I feel like we're off to a positive start. One thing that we discussed, and Monica and I are on the same page about, is to have a discussion in the future around creating board goals. I just felt like it made sense to me. Superintendent Hodgson and the board collaborate on yearly goals already. And as a board, I think it would be nice to start the discussion to see if it would be something that we would like to have on our own, especially for the accountability piece and tracking our progress. Some board members express a preference of having something tangible as a way of tracking our progress toward those goals. I actually have some handouts. There are 2 that I think may help encourage some ideas. As far as committees, I have emailed the board last Friday about preferred committee assignments, and so far I have heard back from 2 people. If you could please get the assignments out to me, that would be great, so we get our committees back up and running. We did have some feedback regarding a policy from one of our staff members at our schools, and I'd like to bring that to the next policy meeting, so if we can maybe set up a board meeting, or a policy committee meeting, that'd be great. And tomorrow evening, the CATC is hosting the Skills USA open house from 4 to 7. It's a good opportunity to for the students to showcase some of their work that they've been doing. And so I encourage people to go and attend to support them. And the last thing that I wanted to share is I guess I can call it a quote from the National School Board Association. It says the overarching mission of every school board is continuous improvement in student achievement. Effective school boards play a critical role in supporting student achievement in their districts. And so I just want to reaffirm that we're here to support our administrators, our teachers, our students, and our student school representatives. Let them know that we do support you as a board. And that is it for my chair report. Moving on to our committee reports. First, finance.
We did not meet.
Policy.
So we did not meet, and as mentioned, we can pick a time. I don't know if we need to do it right now. If we do, that's fine.
Put it to the meeting. Negotiations.
We met, and Kelly's doing an outstanding job. And we had a draft document of the agreed upon friendly agreements between both parties, and we have one more meeting to continue our discussions to bring up any other issues. The things are going along very well, and it's very promising. And we meet tomorrow night.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the administrative reports, starting with the grade school for Jolene and Debbie? Seeing none from the board, I guess I'll ask my question, or just share my comments. I was actually really excited to see that they had a visit from Sarah Fun, a local Winthrop author. I thought that was wonderful. I did want to ask if there's anyone looking into young authors programs for our school.
Have you muted?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
I just had, yes, so I was wondering if our schools have looked into the Young Authors Program. It's a program that...
Not to my knowledge. When this author came, which was such an incredible opportunity, I think coming this spring, because she's local to us, we are planning on doing some work at the kindergarten and second grade level, and having her come and really sharing her experiences as a writer, which was really exciting, and the challenges it is, and the hard work that goes into it, but yet the success that comes for it, and just the joy and the love with that whole process. So that is our plan moving forward, working with her in the future.
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions for Lori and Joe at the middle school?
Just make a quick comment. Lori, I think it's a good thing you're doing with the parent meetings once a month. I want to thank you for doing that.
Any other board comments? I also second that, and I was actually wondering, because I heard that there were some parents who had offered to volunteer some time, so I didn't know if any of the parents had made it in yet to do some volunteering.
We haven't made it in yet. We are actually working on how we can utilize them and in what capacity. We also have to make sure they're vetted, that they've gone through the volunteer process through the superintendent's office. So we're working on that right now. And as we begin our next flex cycle, we may be incorporating some of those parent volunteers for us. We now have Debbie Barnett working with us in cooking as a community outreach coming in on Wednesdays. And we are looking at maybe some after-school opportunities to have our volunteers come in. I know we've got a couple really exciting and eager parents and exciting opportunities, such as a recycling program, maybe some geology work, things like that. So we're looking forward to it and expanding it. We're going slow so we can have success with it.
It's really exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? Moving on to the high school. Any questions for Jay? questions at all? Yes, Ivy?
Yes, wondered when we were gonna get the list of questions that were specifically asked on that survey.
It's in there and
Oh,
Yes.
right here.
Yep. And are we getting a presentation on that tonight?
you are.
Okay, we're doing a presentation on that tonight with the results. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to special education with Sue. Questions? Seeing none. Megan with the Director of Teaching and Learning. Any questions the board has? Okay.
I don't have so much of a question, but I'm excited to focus on math programming, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Perfect. Let's see. Alicia. Oh, yes, Monica.
I think it would be really helpful for the board to take a close look at where we are with NOEA. And I'm wondering if we could get de-identified student scores for the past 5 years, broken down by grade, and chart these comparing national and Maine state numbers. I think it would be really helpful to get a clear picture of where we are. The reason I asked for the past 5 years is to look at how COVID might have affected those numbers. I think it would be really valuable to have it. I'm hoping you can get that for us.
We did do some of that last year as a board, and Megan had did a presentation. I'm not sure if you have any plans to do one in the future.
Yeah, so last year we focused. Last year we did do a data presentation. It gets to be a saturation point when we do grade level. We did longitudinal data. I believe we covered 5 or 7 years. I don't remember offhand exactly. We looked at both cohorts and grade level data. And we looked at the 50th and 60th percentile for NOEA norms. There isn't state of Maine data for 5 years because we've only been using the NOEA as a state level assessment for about 1.5 years. So there really isn't longitudinal data on the through year, which actually is a significant pivot from what the growth assessments are. We are continuing the growth assessments K2, so that is still a valid measure, and there has been some comparability studies done by NOEA and the DOE to make sure that the through year is aligning with similar benchmarks as the NOEA map growth. So I'm happy to put together a summary of the fall data and last spring's data. If you'd like, I can prepare that for February. If you'd rather wait until we can collect some of the spring data, I can wait till then as well. But the spring data, there will most likely be a pause in because the spring data not only gives the RIT score, which is the 3-digit map growth NOEA score, but it also gives a criterion-based score for each student, which is at, below, above, or well below grade level expectations. And that has not been released publicly through the SI data dashboard, which is the state housing for student data. So traditionally, once that is released, most folks in my position, I've kind of tried to figure out when this makes the most sense. That's when they do a lot of board presentations. So I'm happy to start getting that data together, which I already have, and putting together a presentation for you folks. But I will not be able to have state of Maine NOEA data because it's only been a requirement for about 2 years, and the through-year model is brand new as of last spring.
Thank you, Megan. Any other questions? Oh, Monica.
A quick follow-up. So, given that you have already been working on that, do we have in place like a clear plan about how to address these deficits with the students in each of the 3 schools?
So I think looking at specific improvement of achievement data is multi-tiered. Looking at just the data to impact student scores isn't going to be what's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. So we are trying to develop a cycle of curriculum review and development. So last year we spent some time with science, mainly dictated by the fact that our subscriptions were ending K-8 for science, so we had to do that. This year we're looking at math, and as we're looking at programs, we're looking at things that are evidence-based, and feedback from teachers and testing data is that students need to work on mathematical fluency and computational fluency. So as we're looking at some of the curriculum pieces with that, we are trying to see if there's another either part of a program or in addition to a program that can build in that computational fluency piece. And math traditionally has been lower than reading scores in Winthrop.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the maintenance report.
Yes, I'm thinking towards the future here with our finances. The middle school parking lot, are we thinking this year, do we have a plan for that parking lot?
I don't know if I'm writing this down and talking at the same time. We do not have a specific plan, except that we know that it needs to be addressed. We are looking at the audit that was presented a couple meetings ago. If there is the hope is that there will be enough carry forward money to set aside, ask the town council to earmark that for pavement. Joel and I just talked, I lose track of time, it was Monday or Tuesday this week, about prioritizing even within that project. I mean, ideally, all of the middle school road and parking area needs to be done. But if you've driven up the middle school recently, the circle is really in rough shape, so that's our priority right now. I'll try to capture it all.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to technology report. Any questions for Paul? Seeing none, we'll move on to transportation. Any questions? Any questions for nutrition? I did have a question. I was wondering, I saw in the report, after they lost power, they had to discard all the refrigerated product. I'm guessing in order to get the compensation or the filing the claim, you have to dispose of that food in order to get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we dispose of all the refrigerated foods. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes our administration reports. We will move on to our report on the high school student survey. Just as long as you have the microphone.
All right.
Turn your microphone.
Yeah, I will. All right, so we have the information and pie charts from the student survey about the bathrooms, the bathroom doors, which we had 64% of our students participate and answer the questions on the survey, which is really good to see over half the student body vote on this. It was open from December 6th to December 11th, and if you'd like to take a few minutes to look through it and then talk about it.
Any questions for David?
You want to summarize the report?
Yeah, so, well, basically what we've come to this decision of through the results of the survey is we're going to leave it up to the student and their comfort level if they want the door open or if they want the door closed. If they go to the bathroom and go, hey, I want this open, they can push it open and put down the foot of the door and it will stay open. And if later on in the day another student comes with, oh, I want it closed, they can kick the foot of the door up and shut it.
Will they be expected to re-prop it back open when they're finished?
They can leave it shut if they want.
David, that sounds like a very reasonable solution. And what was the committee or conversation like? Who did you have the conversation with? Was it like a team, student leader body?
Yeah, we met with student leadership, got their opinions on certain things, and they agree with this. They think this is a good way to go forward. It's dependent on student. If they want it open, they can put it open. If they want it closed, they can close it. And if they don't want to use any of the open public restrooms, they can go use the single use upstairs.
Thank you. Everyone have a chance to review? Okay. Thank you very much for your report. We have no old business. For new business, we will start our discussion regarding the adding playwriting as a new elective course at the high school beginning next school year. Yes, will you say something?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know who I am, Alexis Display is the Dean of Students, but also as part of my agreement with the Winthrop Public School System, I also teach some classes at the high school as well. And this semester, I've been asked to teach an independent study with a student, and that student chose playwriting as their topic. And so about 5 or 6 weeks into the independent study, I realized that this could perhaps be a topic other students would be interested in, especially since now I've taken the time to develop the curriculum for one student. Why not offer it for others? There is definitely a desire at the high school to be involved in theater in ways that are not on stage but are off stage. And playwriting just seems like a really good fit. This would be a one-semester course. And my thought is that right now I'm also teaching other classes and that this might be a good alternating. So one year I would be teaching a puppetry class, which I also teach now, which is very popular, especially with our special needs student population. And then on alternating years I could offer playwriting. So that way students would have opportunities, but it wouldn't be an oversaturated situation. It's not exactly I realize puppetry and playwriting are exactly the Algebra 2 classes. The class does also meet many of the standards for theater, and as well, they do meet standards for creative writing as well, the state standards.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions? Monica?
I was just wondering, so this is, I like the idea of alternating because you have a limited population. So,
Yes.
So is this a 9 through 12, or is it targeted at certain?
It's 9 through 12. It would be 9 through 12. I don't imagine a lot of freshmen would take it simply because they won't have been exposed yet to theater, but there's no prerequisite for the class. There's also no prerequisite for the puppetry class.
Okay, and then, is it an elective or an English credit?
It's an elective and an arts credit. It would also count for your arts credit.
Just a quick point of order. Just please,
sorry.
Yeah, ask the questions to the chair, please. Thank you. Monica, do you have a question?
I do. I don't want to burden you, but I'm wondering if you have a course proposal with some details that we could look at, just because that would be. No, I mean, I saw the form, but I meant a course proposal.
Oh, sure, I can send you the whole syllabus.
Would love to see that.
Yep, I just provided what was asked of me, so that's what I gave. But if you'd like more information, I can give it to you.
Thank you. Tim, did you have a question? Anyone else?
No, I think this is a really great opportunity for students to kind of mix creative writing with the arts. A lot of kids learn better that way, especially with a lot of the visual, and it helps get the writing in creative ways that I think is extremely helpful to their academics.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next item of of new business to approve the nomination of Jennifer McConnell as the district physician.
So moved.
Second.
And the vote? Discussion, sorry.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So just for clarification, is this a required position or a mandatory position?
I'm not sure I understand the difference. It is a.
Like if we're mandatory that this has to be put in place, or is it just required and we have time to put this in place?
No, it's a required, I'm trying to think of the word. It's required by state.
Okay, and where are the funds coming from?
They're in our budget.
So this was already a position that was already here
Yeah.
and was already budgeted for?
Yeah, Jen, I don't know how many years, and Lori's on, but I'm going to ask her to be responsible for answering that question. But Jen's right there. Jen, can you tell us how many years you've done it? Way before I started.
Too many. No, confusing. I don't know, at least 8.
Yeah.
So she's already been here for 8 years?
Yes.
As the position. Okay, so we're just basically renewing?
Correct.
Okay. That's, I didn't get that from the paragraph, so that's really good to know. Thank you.
All right.
So want to make a motion to,
You already.
or did? Okay, we'll call a vote. 5-0. Discussion on where public comments should be placed in the agenda.
So I'll speak to that if you don't mind. In our pre-board meeting, it came up, I don't remember the exact way it came up, but basically a year and a half or so ago, we made the change to move public comments to first because there was some sense of actually the recommendations from Catherine, who've been doing some work about looking where it was on other school board agendas. And the board at that time felt that there was there were a number of times that people sat through a whole meeting, and sometimes, this is pretty efficient tonight, but sometimes meetings were very lengthy, and people came here with something they wanted to specifically say, and public comments was at the end. And so there was, by the time we got to them, there was some frustration. So we talked about it, we suggested, the board discussed putting it first. And then we've had that now that way for, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months. Yeah. So, but anyway, I sometimes get a sense, I know at least a couple of occasions where people show up a few minutes late, and that's right off the bat, and they miss public comments. And part of that discussion was we are good, I think, as a board in every place where I've been superintendent, good about allowing people to speak when an item comes up on the agenda. But public comments is very intentionally a place where people can share what they want to say, and the board does not respond. The board can later decide if they want to put it on the agenda, but it's not a place, because it has not been shared with the community that it's going to be discussed that night, that we take the input in and then we decide to put it on a future agenda, or we do nothing. Sometimes the board chair or myself will talk to the person who has a comment to sort of direct them where they can go. It doesn't necessarily have to become a board issue, but that's the purpose for public comments. And so we just talked about it, the three of us, we talked about it, said maybe first is too early and last is too late. Maybe we can find a place somewhere else in the agenda where it makes more sense. So I said, I think we've done it both ways the time that I've been here. So I figured we could bring it up and you guys can decide where you want to put it. Technically speaking, just so you know, as we put the agenda together, we can put it anywhere. It doesn't really require a board vote. For something like this, I think just getting a sense of what the wish of the board is doesn't require any formal, like I said, but you can do it any way you want.
Any thoughts or comments from the board? Monica?
I think that a really good place would be between old and new business. It's smack in the middle. It gives us some time, particularly if something really significant comes up, that we can then talk about adding that to a future agenda.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I agree. My suggestion would have been somewhere before the suggested additions to future agendas. And give parents a time, because a lot of people are getting their kids dinner and getting stuff settled, so having a little bit later, they have a chance to either hop on Zoom or get down here to be able to make comments and maybe participate more in our board meetings.
Can I just respond to that? Because that wasn't specifically talked about in our discussion, but that pointed the addition of the place where board members can suggest future agenda items. That was also at the same time. That was intentionally put last, which I think it belongs because then you sort of absorb the entire meeting. But that would clearly make sense that it needs to go before that if we're going to continue to do that. And while it doesn't feel like we've added a lot, I think the potential is there to do that, and it just obviously makes sense it needs to go before that.
I think one of the things we've done a great job as a board is to really engage the community, and we try as much as we can to hear from the community. And I think we've had like two times I can remember that people came and they missed it or something, and we don't want that to happen. I think that's sort of something to be mindful. I think there's a piece of being able to plan when you can come that I think is really helpful for people making dinner and family matters and things like that. So because you can come via Zoom, I wouldn't, again, we were putting it in a place that would encourage people to come. So I think the best, what I see as encouraging people to come is the most predictable time. So the closer it is to the beginning would be the most predictable time. And if meetings start at 6, which they start at 6, then people do know and they can make plans for dinner around that. If it's just at some random time, sometime after that, that's actually, I think, makes it more complicated. Mindful of human life, people, aren't maybe always really on time. So we consider the minutes, but it is kind of quick there. So I think the earlier we put it is actually the most convenient for people because it's closer to a specific time. The more specific time we have is 6 o'clock. And then people plan around that so that they can make their time. So.
Thank you, Catherine. Ivy?
Yep, hearing Catherine's point of view, she also makes a really good point. Why not, another option, we could leave it in the beginning part, but then towards, like, before the suggested addition of future agendas, like, have a quick touch base with Zoom and the community to see if there is any other public comments so that those that can't get here right away have that extra chance. So it's kind of opening the door for all. It's making it easy, like Catherine said, for those that do plan and want to get through the whole meeting. And then it gives a chance for those that can't. So it's kind of like a balance of both.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else?
I just want to say I love that idea, Ivy. I think one of the things that's very important to me is having more access for families, for students, and for teachers. So to offer those two opportunities, I think is fantastic.
Without further comments, I'll cease the discussion.
So again, according to policy, the setting of the agenda is the responsibility of the chair and myself. So I think I've heard enough to sort of guide where we need to go. And I guess I would say I like that idea too. It kind of was there anyway. I love the idea of the predictability. And I just don't want to see us be in a place where somebody comes on late with something they want to share and not get an opportunity at some point to say that. And obviously, as I just went on to say that after we've done things for the next agenda doesn't make any sense. So I guess I favor that I give you where it is and give it a second crack at it.
It's also been my experience that we do invite throughout the entire meeting. So I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item because historically the chair has asked, when conversations come up, like it's a very, I think the there's no reason the chair doesn't solicit information, feedback, right?
Yes, so the purpose of the public comments again is for things that are not on the agenda. If they're on the agenda, then the public already knows that they're going to be discussed. If they want to be a part of that discussion, they join in. This is for something that people have questions or want to comment about, and then we collectively, and we don't respond to them as a board because the rest of the public does not know that that is possibly going to be discussed. And we then decide, yeah, well, let's put it on a future agenda, or, like I said, either the chair or myself would touch base with that person to suggest a way to deal with it. So, yeah, I don't think it's an either or.
So actually, you just bring up a really good point that I hadn't really considered. I do wonder that public comment, bringing up issues to the board, I think that's a really important thing, and I think we do a great job. Like I think we do is like reducing barriers, inviting. I'm concerned, like if that's that specific piece of things not on the agenda, we have to be so careful about doing business in public. And so, like you said, if there are issues that are brought up, like there's this time for public comment, and that's when those issues are brought up, and they can reach out to board members at other times, and we can bring it and put it on the agenda or bring it to the board. I just wonder if we're making things murky for throughout the meeting, if public comment, which is very different, I guess, than commenting on agenda items. I think you made that distinction that was clarifying to me, that those are actually different things, and that maybe public comment, like I do not want, like somebody's late by a little bit, but we've never not had someone, well no, that's not true, but if they're a little bit late, we say like, oh, join in, but if it's interrupting the meeting, then that's a problem, but then we haven't had them speak at the time, but I think we're very generous in spirit with being as flexible as we can, and if something happened and somebody is, a minute or two late.
Thank you everyone for your feedback, I appreciate it. Moving on to item number 7, suggested additions to future agendas by board members. Monica?
Hi, I do have a suggestion. Actually, I'm not sure how to do this in the proper order. I had planned to add a discussion of the bathroom door situation to our next meeting. But what I'd really like to do is say, I agree with you, Catherine. I think that's an excellent idea. I love that student leadership, took the lead, did this, and came up with solutions themselves. However, since there's been so much confusion and consternation for over a year about the issue of the bathroom doors, I would like us to ask the student leadership committee create signs with this policy and post them on the bathroom doors so that all students know.
Can I respond to that? All students should be aware that there have been emails sent out to all advisors in the school to tell the students during advisory that is the rule now, that the rule of you can just do whatever with the doors. So it's public knowledge.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? Monica?
So I do have an item that I would like to suggest for a future agenda. I would really like for us to get into a discussion of ways in which we can improve our outreach and regular communication with students, teachers, and families. I know this is an important objective for all of us. I noted in some of the administrative reports that that's an important objective to them too. I don't know if we need to form an ad hoc committee, but before we do that, I think we need to bring it to a meeting for some real discussion. Thank you.
Any other suggested additions for future meetings? Seeing none, we'll move on to school board comments. Does anyone have any school board comments?
I think I have a comment, which, that I'm looking forward to working with a new board and welcoming new members to the board. I think we're all very challenged to do business in public, and that can be very challenging. I think, therefore, it's especially important, though it's always important, to be mindful as we try to work together and communicate our feelings about things that are really, really passionate and close to the heart with our children and education. And then money. Those are all things that end up being. That we are mindful of our tone and tenor and how that affects the people listening, how it affects the other people who we're talking about, people's professions, and I think it's something that I think we really want to work for, and I want to hear all of our voices, and I think we do absolutely the best we can to be mindful that there's the way we say things is really impactful in addition to what we say, so being careful about that.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? Okay, without further comments, without objection, this school board chairperson, oh, that's me. I declare this meeting over at 6:58.